A couple of videos ago I talked about how I wanted to talk about the fall and how that plays into where we are as humans today. You see, I said we're not broken, but for all intents and purposes it really looks as if we are. And from a Christian point of view, we believe that we're born with sin, with the sin of Adam resting upon us. And that for me is a bit of a challenge because, you look at a baby that's born and a baby doesn't seem to have evil thoughts. It doesn't seem to have sin, as it were. It doesn't seem to be evil. It doesn't seem to have all these negative things that we associate with being born into corruption, as it were. And then I thought about how we look at children that maybe die before they've fully matured, maybe die before they can even talk. And so, biblically speaking, those children are said to not have reached the age of maturity. And so we exonerate them and we say they'll still go to heaven because, they haven't reached that age of maturity yet. And what is the age of maturity? I don't know, but what I think is that it's the age at where you start to realize value. You start to question your value. You start to question things. You start to realize there's good and bad. And why is good and bad an issue? Well, good and bad is all about value, isn't it? So bad is low value or negative value, and good is high value, positive value. So if we look at the story of Adam and Eve, how they were naked and innocent in the garden, and then the fall happened and they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it was after that knowledge of good and evil that they realized they were naked. And so I think that story, whether or not it's literally true, is it's a really good way to understand that knowledge of good and evil, knowledge of value, is something that affects us as we grow up, because when we start off young we don't have that questioning of our value. We just accept our value and everything is well and good in the world. But things happen to us, and whether it's something abusive that happens to you as a child or even just little things like getting bullied at school, but as we grow up we begin to question our value, and that need for value then becomes such a strong part of us. That need for value begins to affect who we are. It begins to change what we do with our lives. It begins to change who we are as people, and so everything we do then gets filtered through that need of value, that need to be liked, that need for approval from others. And so I think it's important that we look at that as a way to understand how we grow into this need for value, for validation. This is one thing that I'd really love to hear your thoughts on. I'd really like to hear what you think about growing up, about where the age of maturity happens and how it comes about. How do we get from being these sweet innocent children to putting these walls up around ourselves to protect ourselves from disapproval of others and from being abandoned and those sort of things? And is it a rite of passage that we all have to go through? Or somewhere out there, is there someone who hasn't ever had this happen to them? Someone who hasn't been through this and they're living the same as that 4-year-old that I talked about in my first video. That 4-year-old that thought the world was their oyster, that they were going to go out and just make their stamp on the world. Yeah, let me know what you think. And please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed this, and share this around. It's been awesome. Goodbye.